and gentlemen, it is round 2 of the LEG playoffs. I'm your host, the Commissioner, and boy, howdy, what an incredible second round we're about to have. But let's look at an even more incredible first round of playoffs. Of course, I'm not talking about the Dahlgren-Abbey matchup that turned into a squash match. Let's just look at the score there. Dahlgren beat Abbey easily, 202 to 144. For those keeping track at home, that is the third week in a row that John Dahlgren has scored over 200 points, the most all season. We've had a couple 2 in a rows with Joe, myself, some other teams, but only one team has scored 200 points 3 times in a row. That's the Clock Gobblers, the most dangerous team in the playoffs right now. He easily squashed Abbey. But let's talk about the amazing come-from-behind win. Joe Murdoch, 2020, took on Jason. We're going to do like a sports highlight clip here. So let's go to the highlights here. It started early for Jason, getting some help from the Bears. Montgomery, boom, an 80-yard run off the bat to start it off for him. And look who else kind of chimed in. Mr. Allen Robinson. That's right, Allen Robinson had a day. Got a lot of receptions there. But David Montgomery and Allen Robinson combined for 58 points, scoring a touchdown each. Such a big output and really kind of solidified here. There he is again, Allen Robinson in the end zone touchdown. That was his receiving touchdown for the day, solidifying him as a top 10 wide receiver. Hey, check out that chick. But yeah, Mitch Trubisky, who would have known? But also, Servos got some help from Mike Gesicki there in the Dolphins. He got a touchdown grab, and he actually chimed in and helped out with some points there. Gesicki got 23 points with 2 touchdown grabs on the day. Kyler Murray, on the other hand, had an okay day. 22 points. Look at this throw off his back heels at the back of the end zone. Great catch, too. 22 points for Kyler Murray. Definitely needed to put up points as he was going up against Aaron Rodgers. But Joe stayed with it here in the early games. Dalvin Cook, his workhorse, just bulldozing in for a touchdown there. Dalvin Cook had himself a nice game on the ground with 102 yards rushing and a touchdown. Got himself 21 points, which he needed again if he was going to stay with Servos, who jumped to a huge lead in the 1 o'clock game. But Joe also got some help from some unexpected areas here. Chris Jones for the Chiefs, a safety, 13 points out of a defensive line spot. That was huge. So after the early games, Servos jumped out to a huge lead, 135 to 146 there. As you can see, Joe still didn't have a QB and the tight end and flex, which we'll get to in a moment. Speaking of unlikely sources here, Joe Murdoch getting help from Kenny Moore too. Look at that interception. Probably the greatest catch of the entire year. 12 points for Kenny Moore. Also caused a fumble. But here it is, Aaron Rodgers for Joe. This is what really closed the gap here in the 4 o'clock games. Aaron Rodgers throwing a touchdown to Devontae Adams. He had himself a big game. Didn't throw 1, not 2 there to MVS in the end zone. But Aaron Rodgers throwing 3 touchdowns in the air. And here's one on the ground, even rushed for a touchdown. Aaron Rodgers getting 41 points. 41 points, huge day. Really kind of solidifying himself as an MVP candidate. But speaking of Lions, there's the touchdown to Tunyon and Funyon. Servos still had DeAndre Swift in the flex spot, and he needed him produce, and he did. Here's a touchdown run. Swift just bowls through the porous Packer defensive line. He got himself 15 points on the day. And then Servos also had his big point production from Alvin Kamara, having himself a pretty good game there against the Eagles. Even with Taysom Hill at the quarterback position, did get himself a total of 23 points on the day. There's an easy touchdown, just walks right in. So after the 4 o'clock games and after the Sunday night game, Servos still in the lead, but Joe closes the gap now, down 151 to 188. Again, look at that tight end and flex spot as we go to the Monday night football game. Mark Andrews, he did have himself a good game. We knew he was going to put up some points. He did get 12, but this was all about the star of the night was Kareem Hunt. Yes, in the flex, Kareem Hunt got a touchdown on the ground, 33 yards rushing there. That was a score late in the first half, but he was not done. Kareem Hunt continued to help the offense for Cleveland. This is the play that broke it right here. Down by 7 points. Joe needed a miracle, and there it is. Touchdown, Kareem Hunt with a 9-point play, and that's what won the game. 192 to 190. Huge victory for Joe. Unbelievable performance. Servos has got to be feeling this one. Tough break there, kiddo. But what a game. And that was fun doing a highlight show. But let's talk about the next round. First, let's go to the ever-present, always talked about Hoffa Bowl. That's right. Right now, it is Dave McCreamy versus Nick Shook. First-time Hoffa Bowl participant, Dave McCreamy, taking on a former Hoffa winner. He is going to take him on in the Hoffa Bowl. And as it approaches, we have a very special guest to cover this week's Hoffa Bowl. Well, as the Hoffa Bowl approaches, we have a very special guest, a former LEG member and no stranger to the Hoffa Bowl and finishing last, the all-time losing his franchise owner, Mr. James Yarnell. James, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. How have you been? Let's do a quick catching up segment. How have you been since you last were in the LEG?
I can't complain. Things have actually gotten really good. I'm working from home now full time, which is, as you know, been a godsend. So I've been really enjoying that, especially on days like this where it's snowing. You don't have to worry about traffic and the inclement weather. So I've been drinking a lot more.
Yes.
And
obviously,
I'm either drunk or hungover anymore. One of the two.
That hasn't changed.
Yeah, sure. So, but pretty good, thank you. And but I retired from fantasy football, so my disposition has improved slightly there as well.
Well, good. Let's put it to the test. As you are fully aware, as an alumni of LEG, you still keep up to date a little bit with the season, year to year.
Yeah, I like to check in once in a while and see who's doing what.
Good. Well, we appreciate that. Your input is so valuable, and that's why I brought you on to get your input for this year's Hoffa Bowl. It is first-timer Dave McCreamy taking on Nick Shook, who is a former Hoffa winner. Now, James, you're no stranger to the Hoffa. You've won it 3 times in a row, a record that I doubt will ever be surpassed. How were you so bad?
Well, I guess a lot of it has to do with the fact that I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And a lot of times I would be busy with something else. I'd forget to set a lineup. That happened once in a while. I don't really follow the football that closely, so I don't really know players that much. I just pretty much go by what Yahoo said as far as what they're expected to do. A lot of times, as you know, turns out to be completely wrong. So I think that coupled with insanely bad luck. I remember one year I had a really good team. I was doing fine, but everybody, whenever they would play me, just blew up for whatever that week. And I would put a ton of points up, but somebody would put it even more up. Whatever player they had that week just went off, and there's nothing I could goddamn do about it. So I would get really pissed off and wonder why I blew $50 on this goddamn league that I signed up for. I might as well just throw it out the goddamn window. Wow. And burn it in my fireplace.
I think I struck a nerve. It's just uncovering some sore subjects here in fantasy football. So, I was going to ask you, how does it feel just to flush $50 down the toilet every day?
I've done it multiple times now.
But it's the experience that is you can't put a price on, right?
Yeah, I could.
Okay. Well, James, I want to bring in your expert analysis because you are very familiar with losing. I want you to pick who you think is going to be the Hoffa loser, who obviously loses. Now, Nick Shook is projected to win, but just like you said, Yahoo is not always right.
Does he currently have the Hoffa?
No, I won the Hoffa last year.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah. Can you believe that? So
yeah.
Not only that, but Nick has a chance to be the first multi-Hoffa winner since the affirmation aforementioned James Jarnell joining the illustrious grouping of Eric DeVault and you and Shook.
Even if he wins the Hoffa this year and wins it again next year, it still won't beat my consecutive 3-year Hoffa streak.
It's truly impressive that you finished dead last 3 years in a row. Although hearing how you approached each season makes much more sense.
Well, so, to be honest, it had to be more with lack of knowledge. I usually would get somebody in there for my. I would get my lineup set, but I don't know. Oh, look at that. There's a chipmunk outside.
Okay. Stay focused. Okay, Here we go. So Dave McCready's team has been in flux all season. He did pick up Naheem Hines from the Colts, but listen to this starting lineup, James. Tell me if you recognize any of these names. Marquise Brown, Jared Cook, James Conner. Do any of those ring a bell to you?
Wasn't Jared Cook on the Vikings?
No.
Oh, no, I don't recognize those names.
He does have Ezekiel Elliott going against the 49ers, who have
I know him.
What about Matt Ryan?
Yeah, Matty Ice. I had him on my team once or twice.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because he has him on his team, and Matt Ryan has been up and down.
Yep.
And I don't see a single offensive player on his squad right now.
Some things never change.
Any points? What?
Some things never change.
Some things never change. Now let's go over to Shook. Shook actually has a promising outlook here. Lamar Jackson, last year's MVP, Cooper Kupp, and Calvin Ridley, who's been on a hot streak, and McLaurin at the flex spot. It's been very, very helpful for him. I think Nick is going to win this game and give McCready the Hoffa. How do you think this shakes out?
I think Nick's gonna lose and win the Hoffa.
You think Nick's gonna lose? Why do you think Nick's gonna lose?
I recognize less of his players.
Okay. So you recognize more of McCready's players than Nick's.
Yes.
Okay. Expert analysis, James. Do you have any advice for someone who wins the Hoffa more than once?
Say that again. You cut out for a minute.
Oh, so do you have any advice for someone who wins the Hoffa more than once?
At this point, you might as well just try to see if you can beat my streak and beat my record. See if you can go ahead and, you know what? That's an impressive feat. I don't know. Just stay negative. Keep a negative attitude.
Stay negative. Awesome. Do you have any opinion on who's going to win the league this year? Who do you think is going to win it?
Who's playing? And I know it's you and Joe, right? Are playing next.
And then
and you told
Dahlgren and Austin. Austin, the defending champ and former Hoffa winner.
I got to say, gun to my head, I say probably Austin goes away with it. I don't even know who his players are, but he seems to know what he's talking about. He's won before.
He has. Former Hoffa winner and championship winner. So, James, there is light at the end of the tunnel if you have the Hoffa. I won the Hoffa last year, clearly proving it was a fluke, and I am in the semifinals. So
from the pinnacle to the pit.
From the pinnacle to the pit. James, last question for you. Is there any scenario where you might come back to the LEG and participate in fantasy football? What would that take?
I don't know. The thing I miss most is going to the draft and seeing everybody, because a lot of times that was the one time of the year I get to see some with certain people. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm just saying it probably won't happen.
Oh, okay. So you're saying there's a chance. Good deal.
I definitely want to. I wish you would move the draft to a different weekend, because I'm always at the lake house that weekend. I'd love to come and do it again, but I know it works for everybody else.
Well, now that Mixed League collapsed, I can probably take that weekend spot and do it the weekend before Labor Day.
That'd be cool.
All right. You heard it here, folks. We may have a James Jarnell sighting at the next draft.
I'll see if I can come back and do another three-peat.
We would love to have you be a bye week every week. So please do. Anytime, James. The door is always open. Thank you for your wonderful insight on the Hoffa Bowl.
Thank you. Good luck to everybody.
Thank you, Lames, for that incredible in-depth insight as you get more drunk and grizzled as the years go on. Now let's go to what really matters here. It's the playoffs. Round 2, bye weeks are done. The number 1 and number 2 seeds are now taking on the lower seeds as Dahlgren and Joe move on, as I predicted last week, 2 of the hottest teams in the league by far. Let's start with Party Like a Rockstar, the number 1 seed pretty much all year round. Has not been very good the last few weeks, taking on Joe Murdoch, and this is going to be a close one. Now, the projection says Joe's going to win, and looking at these matchups, it's hard not to agree with that right now, with Aaron Rodgers just completely taking over and looking like the Aaron Rodgers of old as an MVP candidate. Again, I don't like his receivers. I think that's the advantage goes to Gronkstar, but it's all about Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, and Kareem Hunt, the 3-headed monster for Joe. Can they produce enough this week to overcome Party Like a Gronkstar? Kareem Hunt is going up against a very tough Giants defense. But let's look at Party Like a Gronkstar on the other end. Russell Wilson last week, even though he didn't play for Gronkstar, put up some big points. It looked like Russ was cooking again. I'm not sure that'll continue. I think that was a fluke. But the wide receiver spot is definitely the strong suit. It is all coming down. As you look, like the tight end spot for Travis Kelce is the number 1 offensive output here besides a quarterback for Gronkstar. He's going to need, I'm going to need a big game from him. But the X factor for this game, this means if this player performs well or doesn't, is going to determine the outcome. And that X factor is Cam Akers, the running back for the Rams, going against the Jets. Cam Akers is now in full control of that offense. Maybe Sean McVay likes to kind of not do what people want him to do, and the smart move would to keep Cam Akers there. So we will see. But it all comes down to Cam Akers. Will he have a good game? If he has a 20-plus output game, no question, Party Like a Rockstar wins this one. If he doesn't, which I don't think he will because Sean McVay is the worst person in the world, 2020 wins this one. And I think 2020 is going to pull off the upset, at least seeding-wise, and move on to the finals for, I believe, the second time in Joe's illustrious LEG career. Now let's move over to Austin Stoll taking on John Dahlgren, the number 2 seed versus the number 5 seed, the hottest team in the league. Dahlgren taking on Dak Street Boys. This is also going to be closer than the projections. It is saying Dahlgren's supposed to win by almost 20 points. I just don't see that big of a win. Looking at Dahlgren's roster, again, it's all about Devontae Adams, who's having a great year, tearing it up, one of the top receivers in the league, the second best receiver, with Derrick Henry, the second best running back. Those are 2 top 5 players of all wide receiver, running back, and tight end positions. 2 players in the top 5 for Dahlgren, and he relies on them heavily. It's going to be interesting to see how T.Y. Hilton does. He usually tears up Houston, and he's playing him in the flex. Again, Tom Brady, high ceiling, very low floor. I don't see him having that great of a game against Atlanta. Maybe a 20-point game, but not 28. I don't think so. Let's look at Dak Street Boys' roster here. Ryan Tannehill getting the start against the Lions. I never thought I'd see that. But Stephon Diggs has been a nice start for Austin. It really, across the board, he's going to need some big production from Brandon Cooks. Wilson, the running back for the Niners. Robbie Anderson. It's going to be tough, but the real X factor here for Austin is Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs dealing with injuries. Also likes to troll fantasy football players, which is not really cool, telling them he's not going to play and then he plays. I think he's playing this week anyways. Josh Jacobs is the X factor for Austin. He needs a huge game from him. He's got to match Derrick Henry's output and more. So we're going to need to see Josh Jacobs put up at least 30 points for him to have a chance. And I don't think it's going to happen. I think Dahlgren takes this one. It's going to be closer than the projections. I think it's going to be about a 10-point win for Dahlgren. But I think Dahlgren will move on to his first ever LEG finals and take on Joe. There you have it. there's the coaches' predictions, the commission's predictions. We'll see how it shakes out, but tune in. Games are also on Saturday this week, so don't forget that. So get your lineup set up. But interesting to see what happens on next week's episode. We will see the Hoffa winner, quote unquote, and we will preview the championship game. That's right. It's probably going to be Joe and Dahlgren. So can't wait for that. All right, we'll see you next week on LEG TV. Take care.